Why do AIs always want to kill all humanity? What's with that?
People think time is precious, but it's not. Time is savage. It always wins.
What we do now, in this moment, has the power to determine the future.
We haven't come this far to lose everything now.
Burn to discovery. Blow this place to hell.
Hi, I'm Phil, welcome to my channel where I talk about all sorts of geeky pop culture things that I enjoy, including doing weekly reviews of Star Trek Discovery, which is what we're here to do today, so let's crack on with it because I haven't got much time today. My dinner's ready in about 20 minutes time, according to the timer on the oven, so I've got to skedaddle. This was an episode where we got a bunch of answers to stuff that we'd had for questions we'd had for a while, but we also got more questions as well in typical, mystery box style. I mean, maybe mystery boxes is unfair there. There was a good ratio between answers and new questions. I'd say this episode was a more successful one than last week, last week's didn't really have much of a very strong episode plot, I thought. It was very much moving the chess pieces around, and this episode certainly does some more moving the chess pieces around, but I think it had a much more stronger central sort of story to it that felt like it went through a full arc, and various bits of things that tied into it also went through a full arc, which we didn't quite get last episode. So definitely an improvement on last week. This week we had several episode plot lines, including Leyland getting taken over by Control. We had the ticking time bomb of Burnham's mum being imminently pulled back to the future. We had the whole steer data espionage trying to steal it plot, which links into Leyland a bit. I suppose they're kind of the same plot point, but I'm going to list them separately here. And Georgiou had her own sort of little arc in this episode as well, so we had lots of things that felt like they had a full arc in this episode, as well as tying into all of the wider serialized stuff. But the episode didn't feel rushed at all. In fact, there were several moments where the pace slowed down, but not in a bad way. It didn't feel like it dragged for the most part. I'll come to that in a minute. Well, I'll come to that at the end. For the most part, the pace in this episode was really good. And there were those spaces for those quieter moments, which I think a good episode of Trek really needs. It can't just be action all the time. You need those quieter character moments as well. And this episode delivered those. We start the episode to flashbacks to the Klingon attack that killed Burnham's parents, or at least we thought it did. It's interesting to get a new angle on that scene, because it's a scene we've seen before. It's interesting to get some more context on that point in Burnham's life, a point that shaped her personality and her future so much. But it wasn't the best flashback in the world. I thought it could have been done a bit better, and also, is it just me, or does the Burnham that they used, the Michael and the child version of Michael in this, look a lot older than the impression we got that Michael was during that scene last time we saw this? I can't remember if they showed her as fully that time, but I got the impression that she was certainly younger than she appears here. Now that might just be a case of them using the same actress for the younger Burnham, and she's gotten older, but they still want to record that same scene. I don't know, it just jarred a little bit from previous versions that we've seen in season 1, for instance. But what I did like was the scene immediately after that where Burnham wakes up from the trauma she'd had the episode before. I like the way she reacted, the way she initially was in denial, and it all just felt really real, and I thought that was some superb acting there in that scene. I've got to give her credit for that, because I really felt like that was a real scene. You got the denial initially and the real struggling, where she thought it was a hallucination, and when she finds out that it wasn't, that kind of no it can't be, and just trying to wrap her brain. You could see the thought process going on in her head, and I really liked that, and I thought that was a really strong scene. It was a much stronger scene than the flashback scene that had just come before it, in fact. Just brilliant delivery from Sonequa Martin Green in that scene. And hey, also nice to see Culber back in his scrubs, fully on duty again. That's nice to see. Then we get to Leyland and what happened to him after he got stabbed in the eye at the end of the last episode. I had theorised that it could be Georgiou that had orchestrated that in order to try and take over Section 31. That's not the case. It was Control. It was Control the whole time. And Control has now taken him over and is using him sort of like a puppet. Now, I'm not 100% sold on this for several reasons. The first of which is that we've already seen a plotline in this season where somebody has been taken over by Control. RM had that plotline. It feels a little bit derivative and a little bit repetitive to be doing it again. Talking of derivative, the whole nanite thing and the way that Control has taken over Leyland feels a bit derivative of the Borg. Now, I'm going to say right now, I don't think it is the Borg. I don't think Control is the future Borg. I don't think that's what's going on here at all. For starters, the Borg's MO has never been to wipe out all organic life. In fact, the Borg use organic life. The Borg adapt organic life and assimilate organic life. So I can't see a situation where the Borg would eliminate all organic life. The Borg aren't an AI. The Borg are a collective hive mind of organics melded with technology. So it doesn't make sense that it's the Borg. I think it's much more likely to be something else, but this still felt like it was a bit derivative of the Borg, the way that they took Leyland over. And most importantly, it deprives us of a properly developed Leyland. He was on last episode, we got to see some really good stuff from him, and I thought they started to inch towards something that showed us that he wasn't, just the out and out bad guy, that he wasn't, he felt remorse about things, and I thought we were starting to get some nice steps towards seeing a more developed character with shades of grey, and I was looking forward to seeing that, and now I have a feeling we're never going to, because he's being controlled by Control, and he's effectively dead, isn't he? And I really lament the fact that we haven't got to see. I think he could have been he already was quite an interesting character, but the way they started to inch towards more development for him last episode, I was really looking forward to seeing that, and now we've been deprived of it. Obviously, a lot of this episode was dedicated to the relationship between Burnham and her mum, from the flashback to how she reacted when she first found out that her mum was alive. And initially, her mum doesn't want to see her. Now, this kind of makes sense, and I kind of liked the way they were going with this, because as they explained in sort of roundabout way, from Burnham's mum's point of view, from Michael's mum's point of view, she's seen Michael die multiple times in various different timelines, and to her, the Michael that's there is another sort of just random timeline Michael. Not that she doesn't have any feelings for her, obviously, but to her, she's sort of trained herself to distance herself from it. So her attempt at fixing the timeline has failed, so she's going to try again. So that Michael will cease to exist to her, because she's going to change the timeline again, and that Michael doesn't exist anymore. And I kind of like that kind of philosophical ideas they're playing with there. While we're on the subject of Burnham's mum, though, I'm going to bring up one thing that bugged me a bit, and again, it's the logic. You'll always get into logic traps when you deal with time travel. Almost inevitably, there's going to be something that doesn't make sense if you delve too heavily into time travel in a sci-fi plot. And here, sometimes it's the simplest things. Here, Burnham's mum is talking about how she watched her during various different points in her life. Like, apparently she watched her come aboard the Shenzhou. Now, every other time we've seen the Red Angel appear, there's been wormholes, there's been big red lights, it's pretty obvious she's there. So I don't understand, it certainly hasn't been explained how she could have possibly been in any of these quite intimate places, like in the transporter room of the Shenzhou, watching her beam aboard with Sarek, or her graduation ceremony, or the first time she learnt how to do the old Vulcan salutes with Spock. How was she there for any of that without being seen? It doesn't make much sense from the sort of established story logic that we've got so far. But who knows? They may explain that away next episode with oh yeah, by the way, the suit has cloaking technology or something. I don't know. But at the moment, as it stands with the information they've given us, it doesn't make much sense. Some of Michael and her mum's direct interactions, actually fell a bit flat for me. I felt more from Michael when she wasn't. Well, actually, no, that's not strictly true. I felt a lot coming from Michael in this, and I don't know if it was the way her mum was written or the fact that she's deliberately being quite aloof and distant. I don't know, the scenes of them together just didn't really give me much in terms of emotional connection. And they kind of fell a bit flat for that reason, I think. What I thought did have much more energy in terms of her mum was actually the scenes with Georgiou and Burnham's mum. I thought that was really good, and it kind of gave a new play. It played on the sort of tension between two. There's another one as well, of course, if you include Amanda, but two of the matriarchal figures in Burnham's life, and I kind of like that nice playoff there. And we got to learn a bit more about Georgiou's character from it as well, stuff that she even denies. We've been sort of having hints throughout this whole season that Georgiou is kind of does really care about Burnham. There's been things that indicate that, but we've never really known for certain whether or not that's real or if that's her manipulating events to get what she wants, to make people try and think she actually might care, or whatever. But here we get sort of the closest we've ever got to actual confirmation that yes, she cares. Empress Georgiou does care about and does love Michael, and will try and protect her. And I think that's an interesting character development from the Empress we saw in season 1. I mean, there was hints of that in season 1 because she obviously had been very close to the Parallel Michael, but also Parallel Michael betrayed her, and there were certain moments where you thought she might kill Michael. Here, that relationship is coming along quite nicely, and I think, as I said last week, it's very important to humanise her a little bit in preparation for the Section 31 TV series, which is rumoured. So if they're going down that route of having her in a spin-off, they need to humanise her a bit, and I think they're doing a good job of it. Also with Georgiou, I kind of like the way that Leyland, or the controlled Leyland, manipulated Georgiou and played on her want to be the top dog, the always be on top. Leyland played on that, or Control played on that really well and manipulated her into doing what they wanted her to do. And I really liked that scene. I thought the back and forth between the two of them in that scene worked really well. There was some really good action towards the end of the episode as well, right from the moment when Georgiou realises that Leyland isn't the real Leyland, that something is up, and she communicates with Ash on the Section 31 ship, which I thought was a lovely back and forth interaction between them, little jibes back and forth between the two of them, little snarky comments. I really like that, and if both of them, I think they've got good chemistry, and if they do both go off to the Section 31 spin-off together, I think that could be quite good. But I really liked that, and it started to really ramp up the tension at that point, and that then carried through all of Tyler's scenes where he confronts him and they get stabbed, and all of that was really exciting, and I really like those scenes. And then of course Leyland beams down and there is a great action scene. I think him fighting everyone left, right, there's just a really high impact, great paced action scene, which was then unfortunately spoiled by the stuff between Burnham and her mum. One thing really annoys me in TV shows is when something is very pressing and urgent happening, and then they stop, and then characters sort of like forget about it for a minute while they have a deeper meaningful. Now, obviously, there's going to be heightened emotion there between the two of them. Her mum's going away, they're sending her mum away, they don't want to. Lots of heightened emotion, and I get that, and there would be like I don't want to go type moment. But they really did drag on, I felt here, and much more. I mean, there was no sense of urgency in the scenes when they cut back to them, and it kind of really killed the pace of the action. I'm not saying none of it should be there, but I think a lot less of it was needed in that scene just to really keep the pace up of the action going on around them, and the tension and the impending doom that everyone could die, literally everyone, the whole universe could die if she doesn't get pulled back to the year 900 years in the future. So they dawdled about on that scene far too long for my liking. But other than that, with everything else going on around them, all that stuff was good. And that's kind of it. Oh, we had the nice scene with Spock at the end playing chess. I think this is another little step on their relationship arc to sort of reconciliation here. I said last week that I like the fact that they didn't go straight in with it. Like we got the start of it last week with a conversation they had between each other. And I like the fact that they didn't just jump straight to, okay, we're friends and brother and sister again. Here, they make another little step towards that. And I'm sure we'll get another little step next week and another one the week after. And then they'll be good by the season finale. And it'll feel earned because they've taken 5 episodes to do it rather than doing it all in one episode. So, nice scene there. And the only other thing I'm going to mention about this week's episode is the fact that we found out brand new information, new mystery, new questions to ask. Burnham's mum, the Red Angel, had no idea what these 7 signals that have been appearing around the galaxy have been. So, where have they come from? Did they come from Control, the future Control? Did they come from some other third party? We don't know yet. Is Burnham actually going to end up in the Red Angel suit because she has a close enough DNA match to her mum that the suit allows it? Questions. Trailer for next week looks interesting. We pick back up with some plot threads which have been left since early on in the season with the Klingons and Tyler's baby. Now, I don't think the Klingon arc has been the strongest part of this season. I think that episode was the weakest one we've had so far that dealt with the Klingons. Hopefully this one will do it a bit better. The team that have done this season, the show run this season, kind of picked up lots of dangling threads left over from previous seasons and previous showrunners. So I want to give them a little bit of slack and see how they deal with that. Are we going to get a complete resolution of that? It'll be interesting to see. Also looks like we're going to get to see that D7 battlecruiser, so that's good. And Section 31 Control looks like it's got all of Section 31's fleet at its disposal. So we're definitely ramping up to the end of the season now. What new mysteries we're going to find out next week. Anyway, I've got to go eat my dinner, so thank you very much for watching. I want to ask you a question, because after Star Trek Discovery wraps up, I want to, still do a bit of Star Trek content on this channel, but what do you want to see if I'm not doing reviews, weekly reviews? What kind of Star Trek content would you like? I've previously done ranking videos, so I ranked all of Starfleet uniforms, for instance. You can watch that video here, in fact. So let me know if you want more stuff like that, or if there's any other kind of Star Trek content you'd like to see. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week, hopefully, for another episode review. Bye.